Hey movie fans! That's my influencer line. I'm trying it out. What do you think? Scratch it. Let's get started. Okay, this is a decade I'm really excited about. Let's move on to the 1970s. Historically, one of the wildest decades, but some really great stuff came out of it. So the Academy Awards in the 1970s, I'm interested to know how many of these films you've actually seen, and if you haven't seen some of them, I highly recommend going to Netflix, Hulu, YouTube, wherever you can find these films, go watch them, buy them. They're great movies. Here are some of the 1970s Academy Award winners. Patton.
We won't have a yellow bastard sitting here crying in front of these brave men who've been wounded in battle. Shut up! Don't admit this yellow bastard. Nothing wrong with him.
The first Academy Award winner for Best Picture in the 70s was Patton. Directed by Franklin J. Schaffner, it's a biographical war film depicting the life of the controversial World War II General George S. Patton. The film stars George C. Scott portraying Patton, from his battlefield brilliance to his abrasive personality. The film captures Patton's leadership during pivotal moments of the war, emphasizing his unorthodox methods and unwavering determination. Parts of the plot were taken from General Omar Bradley's World War II memoir, A Soldier's Story, and 20th Century Fox hired Bradley as the film's senior technical advisor. Bradley knew Patton well enough to dislike him both personally and professionally. Patton won the Academy Award for Best Picture in 1970 for its powerful portrayal of a larger-than-life historical figure. Scott's compelling performance and its epic scope resonated strongly with audience amidst the backdrop of the Vietnam War era, reflecting on leadership, conflict, and the complexities of military command.
The French Connection, an American neo-noir action thriller starring Gene Hackman, Roy Schneider, and Fernando Rey.
There's been some talk, though.
About what?
Shipment. Coming in this week after. Everybody's gonna get well.
Well, who's bringing it?
Who knows?
So, in 1970, production began, the film novel adaptation, and based on a true story of one of the biggest drug busts in American history. Producer Philip D'Antoni was taken by the story of these two New York cops who managed to pull off an amazing drug bust. He hired William Friedkin to direct. He felt it was perfect to make the gritty kind of drama he imagined because of his background as a documentary filmmaker. Some real-life inspiration for the film, officers Egan and Grosso remained on set almost every day as technical advisors and even had roles in the film. Egan, the basis for Popeye Doyle, plays Doyle, and Russo's supervisor, Walt Simonson, which meant he got a chance to play his own boss. Grosso, the basis for Cloudy Russo, plays Clyde Klein, one of the two federal agents assigned to assist the detectives on the case. Though Friedkin later recalled that the detectives thought his film version of events was fairly accurate, the director also noted that the film is an impression of the real case. But in real life, the drug bust took several months to develop and never involved a high-speed chase or shootout. French Connection won 5 Academy Awards and is still one of the greatest films of the 1970s with its gritty visual style, powerhouse performances, and great car chase sequences. It's considered one of the most iconic crime thrillers of all time. The film was an adaptation of Robin Moore's non-fiction book with the same title, first published in 1969. It tells the true story of one of the biggest drug busts in American history, led by the NYPD detectives Eddie Egan and Sonny Grosso in the early 1960s. The French Connection was a scheme smuggling heroin from Indonesia through Turkey to France and then to the United States and Canada and a little bit through Cuba. The operation started in the 1930s and reached its peak in the 1960s, and it was dismantled then in the 1970s. Robin Moore's book found its way into the hands of producer Philip D'Antoni, who was taken by the story of these two New York cops with different personalities who'd managed to pull off an amazing drug bust working together. To direct, he hired William Friedkin, who saw the potential for a great film. What he didn't see, though, was the appeal of Moore's book, which he later claimed that he never actually finished. He said, "I never read Robin Moore's book. I tried. I don't know how many pages I got through. Not many. I couldn't read it. I couldn't follow it." There was a follow-up book titled The Setup, The Shocking Aftermath to The French Connection. did you know that they made a sequel? Picking up 4 years after the original left off, narcotics officer Jimmy Popeye Doyle, played again by Gene Hackman, is still searching for elusive drug kingpin Alan Charner, played by Fernando Rey. Orders from his superiors send Doyle to France to track down the criminal mastermind and bust his drug ring. French Connection 2 was a critical success and was nominated for 5 Academy Awards at the 1974 ceremony, including Best Picture and Best Direction. Although it missed out on both of those accolades, Hackman did win Best Actor for his performance as Doyle. Although it's not as well known as its predecessor, French Connection 2 grossed a respectable $42 million at the box office and brought in mostly positive reviews from critics and viewers alike. So 2 critically acclaimed movies. Do they need a third? Well, someone thought so. Third film, this time direct-to-television, called Popeye Doyle, was aired in 1986. The Godfather.
How did things ever get so far? I don't know. It was so unfortunate, so unnecessary.
The Godfather is a 1972 American crime film directed by Francis Ford Coppola. Francis Ford Coppola co-wrote the screenplay with Mario Puzo, which was based on Puzo's best-selling 1969 novel. Paramount Pictures obtained the rights for the novel for $80,000. It is often regarded as the greatest film ever made and was selected for preservation in the U.S. National Film Registry of the Library of Congress in 1990. It's pretty prestigious and a pretty big deal, right? So Brando was loved for his acting ability, yet feared for his volatility and tantrums while on set. Working with him was borderline nightmarish, apparently. He often refused to memorize his lines and would force the actors to wear cue cards to aid him in his dialogue. Not great, Brando, but he produced some great films. The man also owned a raccoon who would allegedly play, fight, and tickle with him. He loved being chased around by the veteran actor. So executives at Paramount were against having Brando in the role. After months of debate between Coppola and Paramount over Brando, Paramount president Stanley Jaffe requested a screen test. Coppola did not want to offend Brando and claimed he needed to test equipment, filming what would be Brando's screen test. Brando stuck cotton balls in his cheeks, put shoe polish in his hair, and rolled his collar. The executives were very impressed with Brando's efforts and allowed Coppola to cast Brando for the role if he accepted a lower salary and put up a bond to ensure he would not cause any delays in production. So there you go. Let's talk about the raccoon and Brando. The man owned a raccoon, which should maybe be its own film. Side note, I have actually played with raccoons myself, and although Brando is notorious for being difficult to work with, it's not the raccoon's fault. Raccoons can actually, by nature, be very, very sweet. What makes them crazy and what we know them as is the diseases that they pick up in the trash, which is where they tend to be a lot. And that's what kind of makes them go crazy. But by nature, they're like kind of just like panda bears, and they're very sweet. When I was in Seoul, Korea, I played with them one day. They had like this place you could go and play with a bunch of like exotic animals who were domesticated. They're very sweet animals. Raccoons are great. Anyway, I thought I would also talk about activist Sachin Littlefeather. Part of the Native American occupation of Alcatraz Island, Littlefeather noticed stars taking an interest in the protests, including Marlon Brando. Walking through San Francisco, she came across Francis Ford Coppola, director of The Godfather, and asked him to deliver Brando a very sincere letter asking if his interest was real. Later, while Littlefeather was working at a radio station, Brando called. They exchanged letters and phone calls. Then the day before the 1973 Oscars, Brando asked Littlefeather to his home. He explained in the likely event that he won Best Actor, he wanted her to represent him. Sachin Littlefeather took the stage in a fringed buckskin dress and moccasins and declined his Best Actor award for The Godfather. She explained that Brando's reasons for refusing the award were Hollywood's mistreatment of the Native Americans and the standoff in Wounded Knee, South Dakota. There were loud boos and scattered cheers and a thank you on behalf of Marlon Brando, she concluded, and walked off.
The winner is Marlon Brando in The Godfather.
Accepting the award for Marlon Brando and The Godfather, Miss Sachin Littlefeather. My name is Sasheen Littlefeather. I'm Apache, and I'm president of the National Native American Affirmative Image Committee. I'm representing Marlon Brando this evening, and he has asked me to tell you in a very long speech, which I cannot share with you presently because of time, but I will be glad to share with the press afterwards, that he very regretfully cannot accept this very generous award. And the reasons for this being are the treatment of American Indians today by the film industry. Excuse me.
The press coverage of that moment was not kind. The tabloids circulated a false rumor that she wasn't really Native American, just another Hollywood pretender. In 2022, Littlefeather has finally received an apology from the Academy, as well as a standing ovation when she took the stage at her event, An Evening with Sacheen Littlefeather. Gathering held the Academy Museum featuring dance and song performances selected by Littlefeather. It was an evening meant to acknowledge the wrongs of the past and highlight the culture of the Native communities. The sting.
Shaw's been planning to beat your game for months. He's just been waiting for you to cheat him so he could clip you.
Who do you think you're talking to, Aaron boy? Nobody sets me up.
The Sting is a classic crime comedy drama released in 1973, directed by George Roy Hill. The movie follows the story of two grifters, Henry Gondorff, played by Paul Newman, and Johnny Hooker, played by Robert Redford. They team up to pull off a complex heist on a wealthy crime boss. The film's intricate plot, clever dialogue, and memorable performances made it a critical and commercial success. The Sting won 7 total Academy Awards, largely due to its masterful blend of humor, suspense, and nostalgia, which captivated audience and critics alike.
The Godfather Part II.
We're both part of the same hypocrisy. But never think it applies to my family.
So let's talk about The Godfather Part II, one of 2 sequels to have a repeat win for Best Picture. Godfather Part II continues the story of the Corleone crime family, directed by Francis Ford. The film has won 6 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director for Coppola, and Best Supporting Actor for Robert De Niro. However, Coppola didn't really want to direct it. He wasn't excited about driving back into the world of the Corleone family, but the studio wanted a sequel. So Coppola suggested they hire up-and-comer Martin Scorsese, who had just directed Mean Streets. But Paramount disagreed and eventually got Coppola to direct the sequel by agreeing to pay $1 million, which Coppola asked for as a bluff because at that time it was an outrageous paycheck for a director. Times changed. Also, it was the last American film to be printed in dye transfer Technicolor. That's awesome. Dye transfer is a continuous tone color photographic printing process. Eastman color, introduced in 1950, was one of the first widely successful single strip color processes and eventually displaced the more cumbersome Technicolor. I forgot to mention the reshoots. So the flashback scenes had to be reshot because of historical inaccuracies with the pants. The original scenes contained zippers on the trousers, which weren't invented until 1913, way after the flashbacks were set, way before 1913. So they had to be changed and the scenes shot again, which is super time consuming. This time, when they were reshot, they used button flies instead of zippers, which did exist. In case you were wondering, the modern zipper was eventually designed in 1913 by Gideon Sundback. He worked at the Universal Fastener Company in Hoboken, New Jersey, just across the river from me in New York. Did you know that? I bet you didn't. Boom. Fashion knowledge. That's awesome. Bet you didn't know you were gonna learn about pants today. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
How are we gonna win our money back?
You're not going to win your money back, Mr. Martini. That's all over.
Directed by Academy Award winner Milos Forman, who won 2 Oscars during his career. Forman lived for a month in an Oregon State mental hospital to learn about the experience of life on the inside before filming began. The movie starred Jack Nicholson as Randall P. McMurphy, a petty criminal faking mental illness to escape prison. It features McMurphy befriending the other patients in the insane asylum and helping them reclaim their humanity, while Nurse Ratched attempts to maintain order in her ward. The movie explores free will versus institutional authority and conformity versus individualism. They actually shot the film at a real-life functioning mental hospital in Salem, Oregon, the same one that Foreman spent a month as a resident for research. Several of the extras and background performers were real patients. It is also listed on the National Film Registry of the United States Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. At the box office, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was a huge success, grossing over $108 million worldwide. It was the second highest grossing film of 1975, behind Jaws, and the top grossing domestic movie of that year.
Rocky.
Oh yeah, terrific. I mean, you could be a heartbreak. You walk down the street breaking hearts the way you're looking, very sharp.
Rocky Balboa, played by Sylvester Stallone. The film was written by Stallone, who was inspired to write after seeing Muhammad Ali fight Chuck Wepner in 1975. Wepner went 15 rounds before getting TKO'd. Nobody expected him to last that long. Stallone thought a film about a down-and-out underdog boxer would make a great movie. But even though the fight inspired the script, Stallone maintains it wasn't about Wepner, who didn't take his word for it and sued Stallone. Eventually, they settled for an undisclosed amount. Steadicams are often used in filmmaking. Invented by Garrett Brown and introduced in 1975 by Cinema Products Corporation. It was designed to isolate the camera from the camera operator's movement, keeping the camera motion separate and controllable. They used it in Rocky to film Balboa as he was running. It's not the first film to use the tool. It was the third, after Bound for Glory and Marathon Man. But it was the most notable film to use a Steadicam in the early days of its invention. A couple quick facts. Bill Conti composed the score on a shoestring budget, but the theme song for the film Gonna Fly Now became a hit and reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 for 1 week. The film was made on a budget of just over $1 million. United Artists took a gamble on the movie. It made $117 million in the United States and Canada and $225 million worldwide. Adjusted for inflation, that's the equivalent of making over $1 billion today. Rocky, the highest grossing film of 1976, was also the second highest grossing movie of 1977, behind only Star Wars. An underdog film about an underdog boxer that became a franchise.
Annie Hall.
There's an old joke. Two elderly women are at a Catskill Mountain resort, and one of them says, "Boy, the food at this place is really terrible." The other one says, "Yeah, I know, and such small portions."
Annie Hall is a romantic comedy directed by Woody Allen. The movie follows the on-again, off-again relationship, starring Allen and Diane Keaton as a couple navigating the ups and downs of love, relationships, and identity in 1970s New York City. The film's witty dialogue, relatable characters, and innovative storytelling style led to 4 Academy Award wins.
The Deer Hunter.
Oh, Christ, I don't believe it.
Mike?
Mike! Jesus Christ! Hey!
The Deer Hunter is a powerful and haunting drama directed by Michael Cimino. The movie tells the story of a group of friends from a small Pennsylvania town who are forever changed by their experiences in the Vietnam War. Starring Robert De Niro, Christopher Walken, and John Savage. Their characters return to their hometowns, struggling to cope with the trauma and disillusionment of battle. The film is an exploration of the human cost of war, its themes of friendship, loyalty, and sacrifice, and its innovative storytelling style earned it 5 Academy Awards.
And Kramer versus Kramer.
Ted, I'm leaving you. Ted, keys. Here are my keys. Here's my American Express card. Here's my Bloomingdale's credit card. Here's my checkbook. I've taken $2,000 out of our savings account because that's what I had in the bank when we first got married.
Was this some kind of joke?
Here's the cleaning, here's the laundry ticket. You can pick them both up on Saturday.
Kramer vs. Kramer tells the story of a custody battle between 2 parents, Ted Kramer, played by Dustin Hoffman, and Joanna Kramer, played by Meryl Streep. The film explores the emotional struggles of the characters as they navigate the complexities of divorce, parenthood, and personal growth. Directed by Robert Benton, it won the Academy Award for the Best Picture due to its thought-provoking portrayal of a sensitive topic, its well-crafted storytelling, and the exceptional performances of its cast.
Seriously amazing films, but there are also some amazing films that weren't nominated for Best Picture in the 1970s, like MASH,
Don't you use olives?
A Clockwork Orange,
Now tell me what you had in mind, Georgie boy.
Deliverance,
Who has the ability to survive.
American Graffiti,
I'm a ready Teddy.
The Exorcist,
See the cross of the Lord.
Chinatown,
Then they go back and they screw a little bit more, and then they go out and they contemplate the moon.
Jaws,
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Taxi Driver,
Well, then who the hell else are you talking? You talking to me?
Star Wars,
A little short for a stormtrooper.
and Apocalypse Now.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Do you agree that these shouldn't have won, or do you think some of them should have won? What do you think? Also, fun fact, only 2 sequels in the history of the Academy Awards have won Best Picture. Any guesses? Just kidding, I'm gonna tell you. The Godfather Part II and The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. Let us know which movies you've seen.
Follow us. We talk about movies.